So, well, again, my name is kind of hard to pronounce. I do go by Joe. That makes everyone's lives easier, so don't be afraid to call me that. I'm very excited to be chatting with you all today. And when I was invited to speak at this conference, I gotta say, I spent a lot of time thinking about what should I talk about? Because I can pitch CrewAI to you all every day and all day long, and believe me, I can. I can talk about CrewAI for hours. But I was thinking about something unique that we could bring to the table, that you wouldn't hear about it anywhere else. And I think I got an angle on this that's gonna be very interesting. But before we get there, I do wanna start with one number. And this number is 60 million. 60, can I swear on this? Fucking million. It's a lot. Any guesses on what that is? Give it once. Give it twice. That's how many agents we're running a month. You got it. That's insane. And that number is huge, but also it's so small in a few different ways. I think like it's so much early days on what is happening with AI right now. And I'm very excited about what it's going to look like in a year from now and how many zeros we're going to be adding to that number there. Now, why we get to power 60 million agents, right? That's something that everyone like asks me whenever we're doing meeting with like customers or VCs or whatever, you name it. They're like, all right, what is special about you? And I spend a lot of time thinking about this. And first, I would say, oh, it's our framework. Our framework is amazing. It's so simple to use, and people love it. They get to build these things very, very quickly. But I mean, we just had a panel about frameworks, and if there's anything that we took from there is that frameworks are cheap. So I don't think it's the framework. I think it's an ecosystem that we have built. And this ecosystem started with the framework for sure, and people building with it. But then we realized very quickly, well, people actually want to learn. They want to be educated on how to build these things. If you live in the Bay, like many of you here probably do, we are in a bubble where like, it's not a bubble, echo chamber, where everyone's talking about agents, we all know it. But 98% of the engineers out there, around the globe, they're trying to pick this up. So we end up doing courses. And how many of you know Andrew Yang, by the way? Like the OG, right? The OG for AI. I got to build a couple of courses with him, what was very exciting. I can't tell publicly, but let's say that those courses did very, very well on their platform, enough to get him to invest in CrewAI. And then from that, we're like, all right, well, people not only want to learn, but they want to show that they know it, right? They want to show that like, hey, we have something to prove that we actually learn about it. So we start doing certifications, and in here you can see a very happy Andrew White that got a certification working from IBM about how he's now know how to build agents with CrewAI. And then not too long after that, we start to see the jobs coming, and now we have a principal solutions architect for strategic accounts. What that means is an architect for companies that spend a shit ton of money with AWS. And it's running for CrewAI, people that know how to build agents of CrewAI, what is insane. And we're seeing 100% month-over-month growth over that. And honestly, I'm just like a little bit batshit crazy, and I like to post on Twitter quite a lot. I'm very good at that. So we keep inviting these people to have these conversations, right? Like how you go from prototyping, from running these frameworks, from building these agents into a production environment. If anything, we're all learning on this together. Yes, we get to be living and briefing them 24 hours a day, every day for like a couple of years from now. And we learned a lot of what works and what it doesn't. But it's a conversation. It's a conversation about how to mature that. Now, for us, this is way more than creating a company. Because yes, it is a company, and yes, we make money, and we can talk about that in a second, but it's about creating an industry. This is something that was just not possible before. These are automations that you could not do, either because you didn't have that creative kind of like aspect of this, where you could write the content, or you could create the image, or you could create the video. But more important than that, you didn't have that cognition, the ability to choose in runtime what we're gonna do. We're gonna go right, we're gonna go left, I'm gonna call our CRM, am I gonna call our ERP, whatever I'm gonna do, right? Are you following this so far? Damn, no? Are you following this so far? Yeah. That slide is still better, by the way. Just letting you know. All right, so yes, we have been focusing a lot of this, and there's some metrics, and we can talk about that. Being used in over 150 countries. A lot of our commercial focus is Fortune 500, Global 2000, and we're big partners with like some of these companies out there. And I just told early, but we closed the DoD with IBM. Well, it's very exciting. So literally the government is using CrewAI now. So I don't know what excuse you have, so we should be talking about that. But there's many people that are part, many companies that are part of this 60 million agents that are being executing out there. And I could spend, again, the entire of this conversation talking about OCBC and how they're doing know your customer use cases for their banking and wealth individuals, or PwC and how they're using CrewAI to generate code and reducing the time on doing that. But we can do that any day of the week. I think the most interesting, there's even more use cases. I think the most interesting part is talking about the state of AI agents. I think this is something that we can talk about that you wouldn't find anywhere else, because there's so much noise out there. And given that we are in this weird position where we see the jobs, we see the frameworks, we see the hyperscalers, we see the customers, we see the developers, we can tap into and talk about what is real and what is just like smoke screen and mirrors, right? So right now, when we're talking about companies using agents, we put them in one of those 5 levels, starting on agent curious all the way to agent native. And let me tell you that agent native, very aspirational. No one is there. Like, it's early days in this industry. Like 2024, everyone would be here. Like, every call that we would take would be customers asking, what should I do? What is my competitors doing? That was the question, right? Now that's not happening anymore. Now they come to us and they have use cases. They're level 2, they might be level 3, and we're helping some of them to get to level 4. Level 5 is still a little aspirational. There are some companies that are drinking a lot of the Kool-Aid and going there, and kudos to them, like, we love them. But right now, that's where the market is. Now, it's interesting because the pattern that we see from all these companies is that they start in a discovery stage. And this discovery stage is all about experimentation, trying new things. You might be in there in your company, trying out the open source, evaluating what it's better, trying to measure performance. And then all these technical questions come along. Well, we're gonna do memory. We're gonna do memory like as a graph. It's gonna be a rag. How this is gonna work? Very interesting, enticing questions. But I'm sorry to break the news, table stakes, commodity. Memory, you're gonna need it. So what? There's like 50 different ways you can do it. That doesn't really matter once that you're talking about deploying these things at a scale. There's way more important problems. And that's usually where the companies go next. They go to this realization phase and they say like, all right, we're gonna be agentic native. But between us, it's just a fancy way of saying, oh, we're gonna have maybe thousands or hundreds of agents running in X years. Or maybe it's kind of like a bunch of people in my company is already building this and I need to control it and I don't know how to do it. But the thing is, when you get to that point, you're kind of like, all right, I need an enterprise suite. And I choose these words very carefully. This idea of a suite means that you don't need one thing. It's a stack, right? There's a stack that is forming around this agentic apps, this probabilistic systems for agentic resources. Not only the agents, their tasks, their tools, their authentications, the authorizations, and everything in between. And it starts all the way into the data management layer. Your BigQuery, your Snowflake, your Databricks, whatever that might be, and works your way towards your agentic app. An agentic app here is a UI. It's something that you get to interface, to interact with, right? And you can expose that internally, you can expose that externally. There are so many different ways. But there's 3 things here that every company cares about in the stack. First is interoperability. Everyone got burned on the cloud. They made big promises. Come to the cloud, it's gonna be beautiful, it's gonna be great, and now you cannot migrate off. Your cost is through the roof, and you're like, fuck, I wish I had like thought this better. So what is happening now, I see you smiling, you have been burned by that. And what is happening now is like companies are like, fuck this, I don't wanna get vendor locked. I wanna make sure that today I'm using OpenAI, tomorrow I'm using Claude, and whatever comes after that, I'm gonna be able to use that as well. And it's not only the LLMs, it's the memory, it's the authentication, it's the connectors. Today I might be using CrewAI authentication, but you know what? Okta is about to launch something pretty good. Why can I not like scoop that in there instead? So interoperability. Second thing, observability. For LLMs, observability is kind of like, there's a standard, right? Everyone knows about traces. Traces is the way to go. But with agents, it's less about the agents. Like, if you think about agents as kind of like the atomic unit of your automation, you're thinking about this wrong. Like, the atomic unit is the use case, is what you're trying to automate. So for like a lead scoring automation using agents, it's not about the hallucination, it's about the score compared with closed won opportunities. That is what it's gonna tell you what successful really means. And that's what you're tracking in order to make sure that these things are behaving as they expect. And the same thing for governance. Governance is something that might mean different things for different companies, but in the end of the day is like, hey, how I make sure I'm running this in a way that is not only secure, but it's controllable, and I'm not exposing myself to risk that is unnecessary. So those three things are very important. Quick pause. Let me brief in. How's everyone doing? Everyone following? I'm gonna try again. Everyone following? You're getting there. I trust you. No worries. All right. I have a video of our platform, but again, we only have 20 minutes, so I'm gonna skip that. Unless you folks want to see it. Do you want to see it or do you want to skip it? See it? See it? All right. I'm gonna show you that. All right, so this is what the platform looks like, right? You have a bunch of automations. There is a marketplace, a bunch of things pre-built for you. You can build with no code. You chat your way into use cases. Like Windsurf and Cursor had a baby, and you have like all the way to build kind of like this useful use cases for you. Once you deploy this, become like production grade APIs, load balancer, like auto scaling, everything that you need. You have hallucination, you have quality metrics, LLM as a judge, quality measuring, even ROI, if you go to the trouble of kind of like setting that up. You can run them on the schedule, you can test many different models as they come up, you can train them, roll back, chat with them. There is a lot going on, believe me, in there. And you can interface with these agents in so many ways. You can interface with them in the platform. You have one-click export UIs. You can integrate them with your Slack or your Teams app. So there's a lot going on in there. But the whole idea is make it extremely easy for you to go to 0 to 1, extremely easy for you to get confident on these outputs, to being able to basically observe, zoom in, look at the metrics and fix anything that happens there, but also zoom out and see like overall how these agents are working. But again, I fast-tracked this because I don't want to spend too much time on this. Now, we can talk about security. Security is a big thing, but honestly, I think like we can save that for another day. It didn't came this morning to talk about security. But I do want to talk about why CrewAI. And what we're seeing is this pattern of being simple to start, that 0 to 1, people really care about. The second thing is that reliable outcomes, right? And this is where kind of like a rise comes in. It's this idea that like, hey, this thing only goes to production if I can be sure that it's gonna work within a range of trust. And Arise builds a lot of features that allows you to do that. And it's impossible to outgrow. Even though I don't think anyone's starting to outgrow agents now. It's not like everyone's trying to deploy 60 million agents by themselves, but that's kind of like one of the pillars that we have in there. And we spend a lot of time thinking technically about how we build, mapping to this idea of this stack, of integrating with all those different pieces. There's a few different patterns that we're seeing in the market that are vastly different from what they were before. So with LLMs, there's a lot of like adoption on the edges. So someone randomly in HR figure out a prompt that is great, and now they're using, but they don't want to tell anyone. And that creates a bunch of risk because data is leaking now, like no one's using that, and then like someone in IT come in and cut access, and now you're stuck with your internal GPT that is not really. It's kind of like when your mom say like, hey, we have McDonald's at home, and you're like, well, it's not McDonald's. And it's kind of like what are happening most of the cases. What we're seeing now is more like a central deployment with AI agents. There's usually a CIO, a CTO, a CSO that is controlling this kind of like central tower, and then establishing all this kind of like metrics and PII filters and everything, and then enabling the other departments. In terms of implementations, you can get to 80 to 90% efficiency gains for sure. We're seeing some of that. So there is a case study with a Fortune 500. They came up with an interesting use case. We got their first use case live within weeks. At first, kind of sucked, but after 1 or 2 weeks improving on it, we got to 97% accuracy compared with humans, 94% efficiency gains. They freaked out. Let's do another 3 use cases. At that point, got to the C-level. Let's get together and let's talk about our use case road mapping. We deploy another 5 use cases, now expanding across global. So we have APAC, Europe, North America, Central America. And I can't tell you the company, but I can tell you that they have 630 different beverage brands under them. So there's only a few, and you can kind of like guess in there. And this is kind of like what the use cases start to look like and how the usage start to look like in the platform. So it's very interesting to see the uptake as we go. In terms of use cases, honestly, there is no clear winner. It's very much cross-vertical and cross-horizontal. Yes, financial industry is moving fast. Yes, insurance is moving fast. As is telecom, as is like CPGs. We're talking about that. We talk about the DoD early, so government's also moving. But it's cross-verticals and cross-horizontal, what makes for a very interesting business. About Pitfalls real quick, and how I'm doing on time. Am I on the wrap-up window or? Nearing the wrap-up window. All right. So about Pitfalls, not planning use cases, big problem. Don't spend time thinking about it. Not measuring, evaluating. Arise is here to help you with that as well. And not breaking this process into smaller chunks. That's another a big problem as well. So I would say those are some of the things that are not even technical. But if you don't do, you're not setting yourself up for success. You can think about these use cases on complexity and precision, and we can help you with that. We have both crews and flows to help you with more deterministic or more probabilistic kind of use cases, and that has been extremely successful. 3 use cases that I want to leave you with, and then I'm done. And these use cases are more like just to get you thinking about it, right? First one, coding automation and legacy applications. This is basically what PwC is doing with us. So PwC is selling now this ABAP and Apex projects where they charge millions to go into these companies and update their SAP and Salesforce code bases. Guess what? Most of the code, CrewAI agents are writing it now. And then the people are coming early just to stitch up everything. But this is also something that is tracking with financial institutions. Another one, contract analysis, one that is being very particularly interesting for telecoms. There's a lot of text optimizations that you can do on these agreements that you can't scale with lawyers because it becomes very expensive. But if you give them agents, guess what? Now it's feasible. And then you have customer support, it's a given, so I won't spend too much time on that, but you can go very crazy once that you go agentic on that. And on the more kind of fancy side, agentic OCR has been a very interesting for companies that use a lot of paper still. Think about faxes, mails, but also money orders and checks, and how you not only now do the OCR, but you use historical data to kind of classify it and then to delegate and even taking action. So, as I promised, I think I'm right on time. I just saw the wrap up, so hey, kudos to me. I deserve something for that. But I rushed it to make sure that we get to the end. Unfortunately, we don't have time for questions. 20 minutes is kind of a little bit of a time crunch to get everything. But I do hope that you learned something from this today about what it's working, what it's not working, what are people are actually doing, what are people are not actually doing, and how these agents can help.